from Country Diggers here. We're going to be talking today about the Indian Wars. Now, I found this. It's a 1880s Indian Wars Federal Eagle button. Schofield Manufacturing Company, Waterbury. And there's the back, and it's got the shank and everything on it. And I found this up where my family used to have a trailer on our own land. I detected that. And that was a big surprise right there, okay? And we're not going to be talking about the button or the manufacturer, but we're going to be talking about the war that this button was in, okay? And so stay tuned. It's going to be a good one. I'm going to be reading from Apache Wars facts and worksheets, just an overview of it, a short background and stuff from kidsconnect.com. So stay tuned. The United States Army and several Apache tribe confederations engaged in violent battles in the Southwest during 1849 and 1886, while small-scale warfare persisted as late as 1924. When Mexico gave up territory during the Mexican-American War in 1846, the United States inherited tensions between American settlers and Apache tribes. In the past, the Apache had raided other tribes and occasionally one another for livestock, food, or captured people. They conducted targeted raids in small groups. The first conflicts between the Apache and other people in the Southwest date back to the earliest Spanish settlements, but the set of conflicts now known as the Apache Wars started during the Mexican-American War. The Apache only occasionally united together armies of hundreds of men using all tribal male members of warrior age. Apache Wars Part 1, Cochise. The Bascom Affair. Midway through the 1800s, Chief Cochise served as the chief of the Crook tribe. I know I'm not saying these words right. Please excuse me for that. I'm very sorry. Chokonen, tribe of Churchilla Apache. Chiricahua Apache, who lived in the Churchilla Mountains. He was born to a leader. These abilities were fostered by his father-in-law, Chief Mangus Coteratus, head of the Membrino gang. Cochise could exert more control over the Churchilla Apache thanks to this connection. The Arvalpa tribe of Apache, Arava-IPA, tribe of Apache, were not Churchilla. Raided farmer John Ward's farm in 1861 and were later observed leaving for the Churchilla Mountains, which were thought to be Cochise's domain. Felix Ward, the stepson of John Ward, was abducted, along with the animals, by the raiders. Lieutenant George Bascom, a youthful and enthusiastic man, received the order to apprehend the intruders. Bascom invited Cochise to a rendezvous at a location close to the Butterfield Space Station on Apache Pass. Cochise agreed to meet and brought a few of his relatives. Bascom charged Cochise with the raid in the seclusion of his tent. Cochise told him directly that he was unaware of the incident, but would assist in finding those who were involved. Cochise offered Bascom his release, but he refused it unless the property was returned. Cochise swiftly pierced the tent and made his getaway. Cochise's family were held hostage by Bascom. Cochise ambushed a wagon train and a butter-eled stagecoach in the days that followed, seizing his prisoners. Despite the desire to reach an understanding on both sides, hatred and misunderstanding impeded it. Cochise's attempt to arrange a meeting with Bascom, but the latter declined. In retribution for Cochise killing his prisoners, the troops also killed their own. Coyuntura, Coyuntura, a beloved brother of Cochise, was one of the Apaches who was slaughtered, leaving Cochise devastated and enraged. The Battle of Apache Pass. The most significant war group of the Apache Wars, consisting of over 200 warriors, was put together by Chief Cochise and Chief Mangus Coloradus a year later, in 1862. As the Civil War broke out, Union forces were deployed to stop the Confederacy from capturing the Southwest. About 120 Union soldiers from the California column were headed east from Tucson on July 15, 1862. They were thirsty and worn out. The men moved via Apache Pass and towards Apache Spring, close to Fort Bowie. The Apaches likely spotted a chance to raid the military wagon. From the highlands above, the Churchill attacked the soldiers. The Battle of Apache Pass was one of the pivotal clashes of the Apache Wars. The Churchill might have succeeded if not for two mountain howitzer cannons. The Churchill were perplexed by the devastation and dispersed. After the combat, Magnus Coloradus suffered severe injuries. His men dragged him to Mexico, where they intimidated a physician into aiding them. The first Fort Bowie was constructed close to Apache Pass and Spring to protect the region from potential invasions. Death of Cochise. Cochise started having severe stomach problems and was frequently unable to eat. He passed away in 1874, most likely from stomach cancer. Although his grave is believed to be someplace in his stronghold, its location is still unclear. During the Apache Wars, Cochise was one of the Churchill's most capable chiefs. Even though it did not survive long after his passing, he was the one person who could deliver his people lasting peace and independence. The Churchill were left without a potential central leader after Cochise's passing. The troublesome Churchill reservation could be closed, according to the U.S. administration. The last straw was when two Churchill warriors slaughtered two white men for refusing to sell them whiskey. Apache Wars Part 2, Geronimo. The Bedonkehe Band, Bedonkehe, Band of Churchill Apaches. Geronimo was a medicine man rather than a chief, because he, like Cochise before him, thought his people deserved freedom. He eventually became their leader. Geronimo was one of Cochise's most devoted warriors. He had fought alongside him during the Battle of Apache Pass and assisted him in taking prisoners during the Bascom affair. Geronimo's chief, Mangus Coloradus, had passed away, and Geronimo had been there. In a massacre carried out by Mexican soldiers while Geronimo was a young man, he lost some of his children, one of his wives, and his mother. He never forgot his hatred towards Mexicans, or forgave them for what they did. After this incident, Geronimo felt he had little reason to exist. "You won't perish in war or be shot to death," Unson said to him one evening as he stood on Bowie Peak. For the rest of his life, and with good reason, Geronimo held this belief. He begged Chief Cochise and Chief Mangus to lead a campaign far into Mexico to exact revenge for the murder of his family. Geronimo assured them that he would lead the fight because he didn't care whether he survived or died. In the course of this campaign, Geronimo acquired his current moniker. Geronimo did not use cover to shoot arrows during the combat as many other Apaches did. Instead, he ran in a zigzag at them to avoid being fired at by the Mexican soldiers. Then, as he was still learning to handle a rifle, he murdered them with a knife and gave their firearms to other Apache warriors. As he approached, the Mexican soldiers started to yell "Geronimo" to alert one another. The word's etymology is still a mystery. The Churchilla Apaches chanted the term with enthusiasm and intimidation. The Churchilla Apache gathering. The Churchilla Apache were beginning to assemble in more significant numbers than at any time since the reign of Cochise. Deep within Mexico's Sierra Madre Mountains, in a location known as Jew's Stronghold. That's JUH''S Stronghold. The strangely titled Fun, which is a warrior's name, possibly the best warrior of the squad, arrived together with other great fighters. Fun once found himself encircled by 7 Mexican soldiers and had nowhere to go but a bush. He shot each soldier to death, then managed to escape unharmed. Also present was Lozen, Lozen, a well-known woman who abandoned a life of marriage to take up arms. Chief Nana and Chief Chihuahua, Chihua, I should know that one, Chihuahua, were also present. Even at 75, Nana, a bright and cunning leader, was in charge of some of the most successful raids. Excuse me. The Tan Wolf. General George Crook made a second appearance to battle the Apache. His khaki civilian attire earned him the moniker the Tan Wolf. Like Nana, Crook greatly respected his enemy and saw his return as beneficial because he was a good enemy, he responded. Acuteness of sense, perfect physical condition, complete knowledge of the area, practically unlimited ability to preserve from danger, we have before us the tiger of the human species. Geronimo's reputation as a valiant Churchilla chief has grown. Crook was unaware that the U.S. victory would now depend on locating Geronimo. Crook set out with Apache scouts and American soldiers to do just that. Foray into Mexico. The Churchilla kept conducting raids in both Mexico and the United States. The Mexicans began to believe that Geronimo was the devil, coming to punish them for their crimes. When they could, the United States and Mexico continued to locate, apprehend, and murder Churchilla Apaches. Both sides continued to lose people. The United States and Mexico agreed that they might pursue the Churchilla across their respective boundaries, but only a few decades previously, Mexico and the United States had been at war. Turkey Creek, a new reservation. The conflict entered another period of calm, but this one only lasted a year. The Churchilla were persuaded to farm by Agent Davis. At the time, it was widely welcomed in the United States that Native Americans would would need to adapt to European culture to survive. Churchill men were formally allowed to beat their women, which was against the law according to Davis's legislation. Davis also forbade the Churchill from producing the alcoholic liquor known as Tizwin, Tizwin. One Churchill man was sent as far as Alcatraz for violating those restrictions. On the reservation, unrest started to simmer over time. When Apache interpreters started spreading the seeds of discord between the Churchill and Agent Davis, it all came to a head. Mickey Free, formerly Felix Ward, was one of these scouts. He was a boy who had been taken during the raid that started at Bascom Affair. He was the boy who had been taken, from John Ward's farm. Eventually, Geronimo heard a report that he was about to be arrested. He decided to start another breakout. It was already too late when Davis wired Crook. After the Apaches escaped from Turkey Creek, there was carnage. Post-Apache Wars. Surrender at Skeleton Canyon. Take a sip of water. Near the summer of 1886 in Skeleton Canyon in southern Arizona, Geronimo made his fourth and national submission. Nelson Miles, a general, claimed credit when the free Chinchilla Apache arrived in Florida. They required to see their family as one of the terms of the surrender. However, President Grover Cleveland was still anticipating total capitulation. Unknown to the Churchill, Miles had decided that the clauses of the surrender agreement were now void because Geronimo had failed to comply with all his previous conditions, which, when the Apache arrived in Florida, the U.S. government never intended to let them visit their families. Life as prisoners of war. Malaria decimated the initial group of Chinchilla Apache, who had been relocated to Florida. As prisoners of war, they were transported to Mount Vernon, Alabama. And now, I guess this is where the button comes in, because I know that the Indian Wars were the Creek Indian Wars were in Alabama, but this button is 1880s, so this has to be from this Indian Wars, the 1880s. So, anyway, were transported to Mount Vernon, Alabama. They were accustomed to vast, although Mount Vernon's not close to right in here anyway, but still, they could have rode this way or whatever, They were accustomed to vast desert plains, so the tall trees in this environment were foreign. Their kids were taken to schools in Pennsylvania, where they learned English, Christianity, and other facets of American culture. Many of these kids perished from tuberculosis after contracting it. To stop their children from being taken away, Churchill parents in Alabama started hiding them. Geronimo and his band were transferred to Alabama and finally permitted to see their families after spending 2 years in prison in Florida. Freedom. After 27 years behind bars, the Churchill were ultimately released in 1913 and were no longer considered prisoners of war. 2/3 migrated to the Mescalero Apache Reservation in New Mexico, while 1/3 chose to remain in Fort Sill. The number of Churchill Apache was 1,200 during the reign of Chief Cochise. They had 500 members by the time the conflict was over in 1886. They had only 261 when they were released. There are currently more than 850 Churchilla Apache. Cochise and Geronimo's descendants are still alive today. The Fort Sill Apache tribe, with a small reservation outside of Deming, New Mexico, the Mescalero Apache tribe of the Mescalero Reservation near Rudeso, New Mexico, and the San Carlos Apache tribe in southeast Arizona are the three federal recognized tribes in which Churchilla are currently enrolled. Okay, well, that was interesting. By the way, that button I found was next to an old horseshoe, just a few inches away from a horseshoe. Okay, and then I found a Browning rifle bullet, 1880s model Browning rifle bullet, 1870s, 1880s Browning rifle bullet, about maybe a football field away from that, and it was a misfired bullet. And then I found like a 1893 Pabst Blue Ribbon beer token, just maybe another football field away from that. So I'm thinking something must have happened here. Okay, something happened. But anyway, hope y'all enjoyed, and see you back soon. Bye.